have something really important to talk to you, Muse, but I can't hear you over the sound of the laundry machine, the washing machine spinning and spinning and spinning. And then my camera that I use to film our conversations wouldn't turn on via its voice activated function, which is ironic considering what I want to talk about. And the laundry machine, the laundry washer, has finally come to a halt. Now I'm going to also move my microphone because it was still pointed in the wrong direction. All sorts of stuff, all sorts of wacky going on right now, and it's cold. And you know how I handle the cold, Muse. Spoiler alert, not well. What I want to talk to you about today, Muse, is listening. I know. Just work with me here, okay? Because I believe that the art of listening applies to both crafts that I am passionate about, acting and writing. Now, obviously, acting, it obviously applies to acting. But what about writing? Well, I'll get to that in a moment. Dig my new Gary Newman poster. A dear friend of mine got it for me on his latest concert. It is autographed, but I didn't go. I wanted to go so badly, but I was in the middle of the cabaret run, and I know what happens to me in concerts, and I didn't want to wind up with the inability to sing, so I did not go. That's neither here nor there, Muse. Even though he was a big influence on me for the character of the MC, but again, neither here nor there, because that's not what I want to talk about. So, listening. The other day, yesterday, which when some people listen to our conversation, may have been the other day, I was talking with a colleague in the field of theater about teaching, because we have both at some point in our lives been teachers. And I said, you could really distill the Meisner technique down to a very simple phrase. And I said, I wish my teacher, with all due respect and love, I wish my teacher would have, at the first of 3 years, the first day of those 3 years, said, I'm going to teach you the Meisner technique in a single sentence. And that sentence is this: listen intently to your partner and act and respond honestly and accordingly. There you go. That's it. Could have avoided all that repetition exercise and all the other stuff just by having been told that one sentence. Now, it's not really that easy. There's a lot involved, but it doesn't matter what technique you use as an actor. You need to listen to your partner and respond and act accordingly and honestly. Now, the problem is that we humans are more complicated than just hearing words. Because I can have this conversation with you, Muse, and I can listen to your words. But there's subtext in your words. There's subtext in how you deliver your words. You know, there's the classic example of the phrase, I love you. You could say, I love you. You could say, I love you. And they mean two completely different things. It's how the words are spoken, the undertones that lie beneath the words. We have to listen to that. And we have to, and the thing is, the other complications are that we have to not only listen with our ears, but our eyes. Because someone could be talking to us on stage or anywhere in real life. They could be saying these words to us with a pained face. And you have to pick up on those cues. But you're still listening. You're actively listening. You're hearing and you're watching. You're hearing words. You're hearing subtext. You're hearing meaning. You're hearing all of those things. And yes, it's not always easy. Because there's also intent behind the words, behind the delivery. So you see, I'm adding all of these layers and making it more complicated. But at the heart of it is this, I almost said simple. At the heart of it is the act of listening. And if we cannot listen, we cannot respond honestly. Now, what's interesting, and this has been the case for me in real life since graduate school, that I apply what I learned in graduate school acting classes to real life. So I tend to listen intently. Intently, that word didn't completely come out. So when I'm listening to someone, I'm not just hearing their words. And in many cases, and this is one of the things that I apply very much on stage, is that many cases the words take back seat to intent and delivery and meaning and all of that. So I in real life, when you're not acting out a scene, sometimes people get confused because I will respond to what I've heard, what I've actively listened to and heard, and they'll say, that's not what I meant. It's like, yeah, but your face and the sound of your words, and they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. So it can misfire in real life, but on stage it's crucial. Now, how does that apply to writing? And I know this is going to sound a bit esoteric, and it might be a bit too much, especially for new writers. But it is, I think, in order to create believable, not just believable characters, but believable dialogue and believable scenes and believable chapters and believable stories and believable books, you as a writer have to listen to your characters. I know they're not really talking to you, and you can't, well, I almost said you can't see their facial expressions, but you can. Because as I write, every scene I write, I view it in my head as I'm writing it. And it plays out as if it were on stage or on a TV or on the big screen. And I see the characters as they are speaking. And I allow the characters that are with them to respond as if they are actively listening. But it goes further than that. I actively listen to what's on the page, be it a description or dialogue. I actively listen so that I, as a writer, can respond honestly to what I'm being given. I know that sounds weird. Responding honestly to what you're giving yourself. It's a little masturbatory, but I think once you are able to connect to what you're writing on that level, be it the characters or the scenes or whatever, the dialogue, all of a sudden things just come to life. And the words start flowing more easily. Because even as a writer, you are listening and responding. So it's not just your characters having a little give and take. It's you having a give and take with the story, with the characters, with the words, the sentences, everything. And I think that's pretty much where I am as a writer right now. I actively listen to everything that happens on the page, be it a sentence, a scenic description, be it character dialogue, be anything, narration, anything. I actively listen and honestly respond to what's happening on the page. And, there are times when someone might think I'm crazy because I'll especially when for some reason when I'm having trouble with a scene or with a plot point or something, I will, and I've talked about this before, I will have a dialogue with myself in characters sometimes so I can solve the riddle that's been placed before me, because sometimes you need to really put yourself into the shoes of those characters to be able to solve that riddle. And if you're actively listening, it happens much easier. And I know that it's complicated, and I would highly recommend that as a writer in real life, when you're listening to people, that you sometimes, not sometimes, but you go beyond the words and listen to what you see and listen to what you hear underneath the words. You need to get used to that. As an actor, you've got to have that. You cannot exist. You can, but you cannot go beyond a certain level. You've got the ceiling, and you can't crash through that ceiling until you start actively listening as an actor. And I believe the same thing holds true as a writer, that until you start actively listening to what you're writing and responding honestly and organically and accordingly, you cannot break through that ceiling. That your dialogue can tend to be stilted and inorganic. And inorganic dialogue is just awful to read. It just shows. It's hard. It's tiresome. And it doesn't. And it's almost as if inorganic dialogue can be interchanged between characters, because that inorganic nature of it means that it's not coming from a natural place in that character. So it's just kind of neutral dialogue. And you don't want neutral dialogue. You want dialogue wherein the characters are honestly listening to each other and responding according to their character traits that you've assigned them because you created these characters. So it gets really complicated, but it's also incredibly fascinating. And once you have achieved this, it will bring a new level to both your acting and your writing. Or acting and or writing, or acting or writing, or acting and writing, whichever it is you want, if you're an actor and a writer, both. But the art of listening it's not, I'm not going to lie to you, it's not something that you're going to pick up like that. You've got to take the time. I highly recommend, and every chance I get, I do this. I highly recommend that every writer take an improvisation course or an acting class. Anything you can find, take it, because I believe that improvisation is the key to good dialogue. No, improvisation is the key to the ability to write good dialogue. But listening actively is the key to writing believable, organic, honest dialogue. So it's a lot to take in, even though it seems like it's a very simple idea. But when you start to deconstruct the act of listening, you find out that it's actually really, really complicated. And it gets even more complicated when you have members of the opposite sex listening, because they tend to be in tune with very different things. So there are times when you have to try to listen actively as the opposite sex, and that's just, well, you know how hard that is. But anyway, Muse, I also want you to know that I listen to you, Muse, and I listen, and it applies to what I'm talking about, because I listen to you in different ways. I listen to that inner voice that you have with me, that wherein you give me these fantastic and fantastical ideas, and I listen to the visual cues you give me that also inspire me. And for example, the play I just wrote, The Unhealed, you gave me the perfect image that kicked that story off. And going out for a run, which seems like when you always hit me with these ideas, and I saw this woman in a chair surrounded by these actors, and each actor was, I don't want to give anything away, but each actor was portraying something. I knew what it was. And hopefully soon the play will be produced and other people will know what it was. But it was a stunning image. And that little image, all on its own, gave me the idea for a full-length play. And it was so easy to realize that play from that image. So I listen to you here, and I listen to you here, and I listen to you here. It's just like what I was taught in graduate school. You've got to listen with all of your senses. And now you've got to listen actively. Whew! It's a lot to take in, people. Muse, what do you think? Am I onto something here? Or am I just crazy? It could be both. It could be both. But anyway, Muse, I'm glad that we've got our thing going again, because I missed you a lot. But actually, I didn't miss you because you were always there. And what you did for me during Cabaret was, man, wow, thank you. But I expected that from you because Muse, you are awesome.